Welcome, you're watching Vox News, your daily news updates with Rita Kamkumo. Our headlines today: Ivory Coast bids an emotional farewell to late Prime Minister and presidential candidate Amadou Gon Coulibaly. Mali's protest leaders continue to put pressure on President Ibrahim Boubacar Keïta to step down, calling for a new rally this Friday. Ghana has recorded over 21,000 recoveries out of the 25,000 coronavirus cases registered since the beginning of the pandemic. Our top story today: senior government officials gathered on Tuesday at the presidential palace in Abidjan to pay tribute to late Prime Minister and presidential candidate Amadou Gon Coulibaly, who passed away last week, aged 61. Representatives from Senegal and France attended the ceremony, during which Coulibaly was posthumously awarded the Grand Cross of the National Order, the country's highest distinction.
Amadou, slowly your entire silhouette now moves away from us. Then the cruel, unfinished taste that your departure leaves today in our souls will be transformed tomorrow for the team of which you were the leader, a natural leader, of which you were so proud. To us now, as part of the vision of Côte d'Ivoire 2030, that you have encouraged to live your vision to allow Ivorians to dream ever bigger, even more beautiful, even higher, even further.
Toujours plus grand, toujours plus beau. Toujours plus haut, toujours plus loin.
The late head of government in office since 2017 was named in March as the candidate for President Alassane Ouattara's RHDP party in the much-anticipated October presidential election.
Je saisis cette triste occasion.
I take this sad opportunity to say, dear Ivorians, dear brothers and sisters, a few months away from an important deadline, the unanimity that we observe around Amadou Gon, is not this unanimity a sign to remind our compatriots, our political leaders, from our works of life, that the peace in which we live must be considered as a common good to be preserved? To the youth of this country, I want to say this: remember that it was through hard work and competence that Amadou climbed step by step to the top. Remember that he died on the job for our country to continue its march towards the progress of prosperity, in peace and stability.
La tâche pour que notre pays continue sa marche vers le progrès et la prospérité dans la paix et la stabilité.
C'est dommage d'en parler.
It's a pity to talk about him on such a difficult day, but he would have been a great president because he is a man of unity. But destiny wanted it to be so. For us, he remains a spiritual candidate because with Amadou Gon Coulibaly, Ivory Coast would have taken a different turn. President Alassane Ouattara has already turned a corner, but he encouraged dynamism. We would have taken another turn.
Une autre dynamisme et on aurait pris un autre virage.
Coulibaly is to be buried in his hometown of Korogo in the north of the country on Friday, after a week of national mourning decreed by President Ouattara. In Mali, the opposition coalition kept up the pressure for President Ibrahim Boubacar Keïta to step down on Tuesday, calling for a new rally this Friday in memory of protesters who lost their lives during recent civil unrest.
The M5 RFP renews its homage to the Malian people, mobilized as one throughout the national territory and in the diaspora, and urges it to continue the struggle until victory against the regime of Ibrahim Boubacar Keïta, and this in compliance with the instructions set out in the document entitled The 10 Commandments of Civil Disobedience, dated 10 July 2020.
Vendredi 17 juillet.
Friday 17th July, Independence Monument at 2 p.m. Collective prayer, homage to our martyrs. We have set up a team of lawyers to file a murder investigation.
Nous avons mis en place et au travail une équipe de juristes pour déposer plainte pour assassinat.
At least 4 people, including 2 teenagers, died in clashes with security forces during protests which took place on Friday and Saturday demanding President Keïta's departure, during which witnesses described police firing tear gas and live ammunition during demonstrations. The opposition denounces scheduled killings perpetrated by security forces.
Il y a eu des tueries programmées dans ce pays.
There have been scheduled killings in this country. The Malians respect the special anti-terrorist forces. We applaud them when they go to the field of operations. These are our children. But their training, their calling, their role, isn't it to maintain order? And those who ask them to keep order are responsible for what happened. And we will hold them accountable and we'll get them.
Et ceux qui leur demandent de maintenir de l'ordre sont responsables de ce qui est arrivé. Et c'est leur responsabilité à eux que nous allons rechercher et obtenir.
At the victims' funerals on Sunday, Mali's protest movement's leading figure, influential Imam Amadou, urged protesters to continue the struggle with calm and restraint. In Chad, state media reported on Tuesday that President Idriss Déby Itno, in office since 1990, proceeded to a significant reshuffle of his government 9 months before the presidential election planned for April 2021. The reshuffle is marked by the entry of 20 new ministers and state secretaries, including numerous young people and women, a move which, according to political observers, aims at preparing the looming electoral campaign. The Minister of Foreign Affairs is entrusted to Chad's current ambassador to France, Amina Bassidik. He replaces Mohamed Zene Cherif, who is now Minister of Communications. A new portfolio of security and immigration was created and goes to former Minister of Civil Aviation, Mohamed Tario Rosi. The other key ministries, such as Defense, Economy or Justice, remain unchanged. On the health front, Ghanaian health authorities reported on Tuesday that they had recorded over 21,000 recoveries out of the 25,000 coronavirus cases registered since the beginning of the pandemic. The authorities have conducted over 300,000 COVID-19 tests in the country of 29 million inhabitants since the outbreak began. Only 139 fatalities have so far been registered, and about 3,000 active cases are currently under treatment. With over 21,300 recoveries, Ghana's recovery rate is one of the highest across the continent. South Africa's largest teachers' union urged the authorities to close schools until the number of coronavirus cases drops in the country, which has the highest number of COVID-19 infections on the continent, with nearly 300,000 positive cases already recorded since the beginning of the pandemic. Mugwena Maluleke, the General Secretary of the South African Democratic Teachers Union, said on Tuesday that the community infections have been rising since the reopening of schools. He explained that the country approaches its peak of infections and that the current winter season is yet another aggravating factor of contamination, as it is known as the influenza season. Last month, the authorities decreed the reopening of schools as part of the gradual easing of a coronavirus lockdown imposed since March. In Kenya, in the heart of the majestic plains of the country's most famous game reserve, Masai Mara, the coronavirus pandemic is wreaking economic havoc in the Maasai community, highly dependent on tourism.
We depend on tourists to make a living in the community. We are in trouble now. There are no more tourists coming to visit us. Usually, they come to see the village and pay $30, which allows us to feed our families. Today, some people are struggling to support themselves. Some are sick and cannot pay for their care.
The Maasai community has seen its livelihood reduced to almost nothing since the pandemic put air traffic and tourism on hold in March.
We can't even sell our animals and get money back because all the markets are closed. Before the virus, at this point of time, I would have been making a lot of jewelries and earning a lot of money.
The landowners are not getting any revenue. They can't feed themselves. They can't send their kids to school. They would have no option but to look at other forms of land utilization. So whether that is fencing it off, whether it's selling it to people.
Women and children seem to be the most affected by the COVID-19 crisis, with women entirely relying on selling traditional Maasai beaded jewelry and objects to tourists.
The most unfortunate people in this COVID-19 is the children and the women, simply because the men usually go for the works and the 100% they are getting is come back to home, and even the ladies of themselves, like the video work ladies, usually come to work. So at the moment, no work is done, and even you see the children, they usually go to school. Most of them are in the boarding school. They get lunch there, they get educated, they get everything. But at the moment they're at home, lacking all the education, plus even the food they are currently getting at the school.
Schools in Kenya that have been closed since mid-March will remain closed until 2011. However, after 4 months of coronavirus restrictions, President Uhuru Kenyatta announced the resumption of international flights on the 1st of August, along with the lifting of restrictions in the country's main cities to revive critical industries such as tourism. Nigeria's former President Goodluck Jonathan left for Bamako this Wednesday after the news broke on Tuesday that he had been appointed by the Economic Community of West African States as a special envoy to head his mediation mission in Mali. The former leader's mission will focus on facilitating dialogue between President Ibrahim Boubacar Keïta and leaders of the opposition coalition made of religious organizations and civil society to solve Mali's worsening ongoing socio-political crisis. A letter signed by Commission President Jean-Claude Cassibrou says that Jonathan was chosen given his experience as a leader, citing the great role and contributions his past mandate offered to the maintenance of peace, security and stability in the West African region. In the Democratic Republic of the Congo, an appeal hearing for President Félix Tshisekedi's former Chief of Staff Vital Kamerhe has been set for the 24th of July, less than a month after he was sentenced to 20 years of prison and forced labor for corruption. Kamerhe's lawyer's announcement on Tuesday comes after they vowed last month that they will appeal the Congolese justice landmark decision on the grounds that the country's constitution prohibits forced labor. Finally, on the football scene, Ivory Coast's famous retired footballer Didier Drogba is facing a fresh setback in his bid to become the next president of the Ivorian Football Association. The board of the nation's Player Association announced on Tuesday that it was backing current Ivorian Football Association Vice President Idriss Diallo, who has the backing of former internationals Bonaventure Kalou, Cyril Domoro and Ahmed Ouattara. The former striker is yet to win the endorsement of any of the 5 eligible bodies needed to stand. The Footballers' Union was the 4th to make its choice, and just like the 3 that had already announced their endorsement, it chose to endorse another player. Drogba must now receive the endorsement of the Association of Football Medical Practitioners to be able to stand in the September election. Their decision should be announced in the coming weeks. That's it for today. Thank you for watching Vox News.